Welcome to my channel Rakshak. Today we'll be talking about the Naga Peace Accord. Recently, Ministry of Home Affairs published a report of 2020 that Nationalist Socialist Council of Nagaland, a separatist group, was responsible for 40% of insurgency-related incidents in Nagaland. So, this insurgency has reduced considerably, and Government of India and NSCN have signed an agreement in 2015 for a truce. We'll like to go into the history before going for this details as to how this peace accord has been signed and what are the complications which are still to be resolved. Naga tribes are basically people who have similar origin but distinct culture, dialect, customs, and they belong to the general area of Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and Myanmar. British had annexed Nagaland in 1820. At that time, Nagas did not consider themselves to be the part of British India. The British did not interfere in their daily life, customs, administration was kept at the top, and they were only involved in administering the area. One of the interesting facts which you may or may not be aware is that when Subhash Chandra Bose formed the Indian National Army and along with the Axis, that is the Japanese forces, crossed the Burma, which was the name of the Myanmar at that time, and reached Imphal, and later on in Kohima, the capital of Nagaland. Kohima was captured by the Japanese troops, as well as Indians were also assisting them. The tribal people of Nagaland were so brave that they proved to be very good swords, informers, as well as killers against the Japanese forces. And in fact, Kohima did not fall as it was declared. The battle between the British forces and the Japanese forces, as well as INA forces, continued for 64 days, and city of Kohima was relieved. Japanese had to retreat. It is an established fact that the Japanese, who had come with 80,000 strong strength after having fought in Burma, Imphal, and Kohima, they could reach only 30,000 in strength safely back to their country. On the other hand, Britishers who were involved in the fight with the Japanese, they lost 3,500 soldiers at that time. And there is a World War II cemetery in Kohima. Kohima Memorial Stone is there, where it is inscribed on the stone. I would like to read those lines. When you go home, tell them of us. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. So, Britishers have described and admired the Nagas as a good soldier, and they proved mettle in fighting against the Japanese. So, coming to the point again, initially Naga Hill District Tribal Council was formed in 1945. Why it was formed? Because they thought that the people from the plain will come and they were perceived as threat. This Naga Hill District Tribal Council was renamed as NNC in 1946, Naga Nationalist Council. One of the prominent leaders of this was Fizo, who was a Naga leader, who declared independence of Nagas on 14th August 1947. Fizo in 1950 formed Naga federal government and also raised Naga federal army. Central government deployed army and also gave power to the armed forces under the Armed Force Power Special Act. Fizo boycotted the elections of 1952 and 1957, that is the general elections which were held, and it led to armed clashes between army as well as the insurgents. Insurgency continued. More of the Indian troops went on the ground and they combated the insurgency to their fullest strength. Lastly, in 1975, Shillong Agreement was signed between the insurgents and the Government of India. Lot many insurgents surrendered and accepted the Constitution of India also. But Shillong Agreement was not acceptable to the leaders of Kaplang Group, which is based in Myanmar, as it was against the Naga sovereignty. Agreement between Government of India and outlawed Federal Government of Nagaland accepted Constitution of India, and one of the signatories of this event was Fizo's younger brother too. Later on, National Socialist Council of Nagaland split into three groups, that is NSCN led by Thonglang Movaya of Manipur group, Ishak Chishi Swu of Sima tribe, and SS Kaplang of Hemis tribe, Myanmar. They continued the armed struggle against the government of India. This group, or you can say these groups, were inspired by the Maoist ideology. They were violent in nature, brutal, and this era led to kidnapping as well as robberies. As per MHA report, Ishaq Muvayyak group was responsible for 40% of insurgency related incidents in the state of Nagaland. Let us know about Muvayya. He was a young revolutionary who was very well aware of the philosophy of Karl Marx, Lenin, Mao Zedong, while he was a student of St. Anthony College in Shillong. Once he became revolutionary, he was a protected revolutionary in the eyes of Chinese and was very well protected by the Red Guards. Chinese also allowed him to read the Bible, but gave training for arms, and they also visited the China, all the places which are historical and revolutionary in nature were visited, as well as three important journals, that is the newspapers or magazines you can say, were regularly provided to Muvaya. Number one, Far Eastern Economic Review. Number two, Asian Survey. Number three, Bulletin of Concerned Asian Scholars. But Muvaya was never allowed to visit the Tibet. He visited almost all the parts of China, but he was not allowed to visit the Tibet. The main demand of these insurgent groups is Nagalim. What is Nagalim? Nagalim means a bigger area which covers the Manipur, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, present Nagaland, and Naga Hills of Burma. So it is a area, geographical area, which they claim belongs to Nagapur. I repeat, it is Manipur, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, present-day Nagaland, and Naga Hills of Burma. In 1988, National Socialist Council demanded Greater Nagaland, that is Nagaland. This was the most powerful movement of the insurgent group, and it grew popular also. It also played role in the creation of small groups in other states, and it led to insurgency. Besides that, there were armed ops, smuggling of extortion, that is the running of the parallel government. Continuing with our talk, now we would like to know what is the present status of Naga Peace Accord. Naga Peace Accord was signed in 1997 between the Union government and Naga Socialist Nationalist Council, Naga Socialist Council of Nagaland, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, IM, Ishak Movaya Group. There were 100 rounds of talks for 24 years. One of the joint intelligence chief, that is R.N. Ravi, was appointed as interlocutor, means mediator. So he was responsible for talks between the Nagas insurgents as well as government of India. He was mediating, and this agreement was signed between the Union of India as well as insurgent groups of Nagaland in 2015. The group which was signatory to this Naga Peace Accord was NSCN-IM. By IM, we mean Ishak Movaya Group. Later on, Ravi, who was interlocutor and was an officer of IB, was assigned the duties of governor in 2019, and further negotiations were held with this group. By 2020, the various factions of Naga as well as this insurgent group which had signed, they started perceiving Ravi, interlocutor, as high-handed man who was misleading the other Naga groups also, and there was demand for change of Ravi from negotiating table. So government appointed another intelligence officer of IB interlocutor, that is Shri A.K. Mishra, was appointed the interlocutor. He visited NSCN camp at Dimapur, which is in Nagaland, held closed door talks with them, and this peace accord has been signed. But still, the question of constitution as well as the national flag of Naga. Nagas have a separate flag. So these question of Naga flag and their constitution are yet to be resolved. So this is in nutshell about the Naga peace accord, which is important from the interview point of view for APF students. They must be aware of Naga peace accord as well as Armed Force Special Power Act. Thank you. Jai Hind.